Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are continuing our journey through the first part of the tragedy and reign of Selimus, printed around 1594 initially, and collected here for your delectation. Today we are going from scene 5. In terms of what's happened so far, there's been 4 scenes where some people have spoken for a very, very long time about how there's some dispute in the family as to who should be in charge. At the moment, father is very keen on remaining king, whereas some of his sons are having some issues with the whole daddy remaining alive thing. So these complicated issues aside, we enter our section today as a battle occurs. And to guide us through this battle and see who comes out the other side, trigger warning people, this might involve some mild death. To guide us through this today, we have assembled this fantastic team of readers. So, in no particular order, reading the part of Mustaffa is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading the part of Regan and Mahomet is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor usually based in London, currently based in Germany.
Reading the parts of the Vizier, Hali and Zonara is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm currently stuck in Yorkshire.
And reading the part of Acomat today is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
And reading the various parts of Ottrante, Messenger and Belierbey is...
Hello there, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm an author based in Romford, in Essex.
And reading the part of the man himself, Selimus, cheerful, happy-go-lucky chap that he is, and Aga is...
Hi, my name's Simon Nader. I'm an actor, writer and director. I am definitely not composing emails during this broadcast, and I'm based in Hertfordshire.
Yes, other people who are thankfully definitely not doing any additional admin while we work is reading Bajazet is...
Francis Cox, actor living in Amsterdam.
And finally, reading Cherseoli and Cali is...
Hi, I'm Valentina and I'm an actor and voiceover artist in London.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I am reading what few stage directions we have and questioning their validity as we go along. We've got lots and lots of scenes to get through today, many scenes, some of them very short, some of them quite long, some of them with long speeches, some of them without. And let's see how this goes. So, scene 5, as we have it listed with our version, alarums within. Enter Bajazet, Mustaffa, Cherseoli, and the Janissaries at one door, and Selimus, Sinem, Ottrante, or Cali, and their soldiers at another.
Is this thy duty, son, unto thy father, so impiously to level at his life? Can thy soul, wallowing in ambitious mire, seek for to reeve that breast with bloody knife? From whence hast thou being, Selimus? Was this the end for which thou joinst thyself with that mischievous traitor Ramirchan? Was this thy drift to speak with Bajazet? Well hoped I, but hope I see is vain. Thou wouldst have been a comfort to mine age, a scourge and terror to mine enemies, that this thy coming with so great an host was for no other purpose and intent than for to chastise those base Christians, which spoil my subjects' wealth with fire and sword. Well hoped I the rule of Trebizond would have increased the valour of thy mind, to turn thy strength upon thy Persians. But thou, like to a crafty polypus, dost turn thy hungry jaws upon thyself. For what am I, Selimus, but thyself? When courage first crept in thy manly breast, and thou beganst to rule the martial sword, how oft said thou the sun should change his course, water should turn to water, and earth to heaven, ere thou wouldst prove disloyal to thy father. O Titan, turn thy breathless coursers back, and enterprise thy journey from the east, blush Salem, that the world should say of thee, that by my death thou gainst the empery.
Now let my cause be pleaded, Bajazet, for father I disdain to call thee now. I took not arms to seize upon thy crown, for that if once thou hadst been laid in grave, should sit upon the head of Selimus, in spite of Kirkut and Acomat. I took not arms to take away thy life. The remnant of thy days is but a span. And foolish had I been to enterprise that which the gout and death would do for me. I took not arms to shed my brother's blood, because they stopped my passage to the crown. For while thou livest, Selimus is content that they should live. But when thou art once dead, which of them both dares Selimus withstand? I soon should hew their bodies in piecemeal, as easy as a man would kill a gnat. But I took arms unkind to honour thee, and win again the fame that thou hadst lost. And thou thought'st scorn Selim should speak with thee. But had it been your darling Acomat, you would have met him half the way yourself. I am a prince, and though your younger son, yet are my merits better than both theirs. But you do seek to disinherit me, and mean to invest Acomat with your crown. So he shall have a prince's due reward that cannot show a scar received in field. We that have fought with mighty Prester John and stripped the Egyptian soldan of his camp, venturing life and living to honour thee, for that same cause shall now dishonoured be. Art thou a father? Nay, false Bajazet, disclaim the title which thou dost not merit. A father would not thus flee from his son, as thou dost fly from loyal Selimus. A father would not injure thus his son, as thou dost injure loyal Selimus. Then, Bajazet, prepare thee to the fight. Selimus, once thy son, but now thy foe, will make his fortunes by the sword. And since thou fearst as long as I do live, I'll also fear as long as thou dost live.
My heart is overwhelmed with fear and grief. What dismal comet blazed at my birth, whose influence makes my strong, unbridled sons, instead of love, to render hate to me? Ah, Barsus, if that ever heretofore your emperor ought his safety unto you, defend me now against my unnatural son. Non timie mortem, mortis mihi displicet autor.
And having watched the exit of Selim and his company, a stage direction I failed to leap in and do, at this point exit Bajazet and his company. We're going to rattle straight into the next few scenes as there is an alarum. Mustaffa beat Selimus in, then Ottrante and Cherseoli enter at diverse doors.
Yield thee, Tartarian, or thou shalt die. Upon my sword's sharp point standeth pale death, ready to rive into thy caitiff breast.
Art thou that knight that, like a lion fierce, tiring his stomach on a flock of lambs, has broke our ranks and put them clean to flight?
Aye, and unless thou look unto thyself, these swords, ne'er drunk in the Tartarian blood, shall make thy carcass as the outcast dung.
Nay, I have matched a braver knight than you, strong Alemshe, thy master's eldest son, leaving his body naked on the plains, and Turk, the self-same end for thee remains.
And they fight. Lots of Zoom fighting action here, I'm sure. And he killeth Cherseoli and flieth. We move straight into another scene. Alarum enter Selimus.
Shall Selim's hope be buried in the dust, and Bajazet triumph over his fall? Then, O thou blindfold mistress of mishap, chief patroness of Ramus' golden gates, I will advance my strong revenging hand and pluck thee from thy ever-turning wheel. Mars, or Minerva, Mahomet, Termagant, or whosoe'er you are that fight against me, come and but show yourself before my face, and I will rend you all like trembling reeds. Well, Bajazet, through fortune smile on thee, and deck thy camp with glorious victory, though Selimus, now conquered by thee, is fain to put his safety in swift flight. Yet so he flies, that like an angry ram, he'll turn more fiercely than before he came.
And exit Selimus into the next scene. Enter Bajazet, Mustaffa, the soldier with the body of Cherseoli, and Ottrante, prisoner.
Thus have we gained a bloody victory, and though we are the masters of the field, yet have we lost more than our enemies. Ah, luckless fault of my Cherseoli, as dear and dearer wert thou unto me than any of my sons, than my own self. When I was glad, thy heart was full of joy, and bravely hast thou died for Bajazet. And through thy bloodless body here do lie, and though thy bloodless body here do lie, yet thy sweet soul in heaven for ever blessed, among the stars enjoys eternal rest. What art thou warlike, man of Tartary, whose hap it is to be our prisoner?
I am a prince. Ottrante is my name, chief captain of the Tartars' mighty host.
Ottrante, wast not thou that slew my son?
Aye, and if fortune had but favoured me, had sent the sire to keep him company.
Off with his head, and spoil him of his arms, and leave his body for the airy birds.
Exit one with Ottrante.
The unrevenged ghost of Alamshay shall now no more wander in Stygian banks, but rest in quiet in the Elysian fields. Mustaffa, and you worthy men-at-arms, that left not Bajazet in greatest need, when we arrive in Constantine's great tower, you shall be honoured of your emperor.
And that's the end of the tragedy, or in fact, the victory of Bajazet. That's I think where the play ends. I mean, it's, clearly the play's been given the wrong title. That wicked Selimus has been beaten off the stage, and everyone's going to live happily ever after. Okay, lost. There's a bit of sadness here, but justice has been reached. Obviously not. There's a lot more to go. I wanted to run those scenes into each other because they are active. We've had scenes before of come and have a go if you think you're hard enough prior to a battle, and this very much fits within that pattern. And though we do still have longish speeches, there's a lot more activity going on. I just wanted to start from that point of view. As the action sort of is building up. Thoughts about little scene, these scenettes, and your characters as they're starting to leap out, as it were. Someone have an opinion.
Effectively, it's a single scene with people rushing over the stage.
It's like an Act 5, a self-contained Act 5.
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. I was wondering, so Selimus gets beaten in and then somehow still walks off stage or crawls off stage to come back and do his little speech.
We've had beats in before, and I think it seems to me that he is taken off the stage. So he loses the fight.
It could just be that they're fighting into the.
Yeah, I don't think it literally means that he smashes his face in and
knocks him out.
I mean, it doesn't mean that he doesn't get hurt, but it's clearly not fatal or anything. It's more that he loses the stage to Mustaffa, who presumably chases him off. I don't know if other people have encountered this kind of stage direction before, but I'm sure we have, and it seems to be that's the kind of motion we have.
Is it not like when you beat a retreat? Beat is as in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it would refer to the general conflict itself rather than a personal battle in this case.
Wish Alexandra was here; she'd know.
Yes, it's yeah, but in terms of potential of what we're doing with stage business, how many people are on stage and fighting, how big is the stage? We've had this with other plays where the question of we don't have pitch battles because we don't have room to do them, and there's lots of you get a two-handed a little fight scene between two characters, Cherseoli and Ottrante. Do we feel for Cherseoli here?
I haven't had time to really get to know them.
No.
I mean, I feel I know him less than Colin.
Yeah.
That's saying something.
Colin.
Yeah.
And for those confused, Colin is not in this play. There's a bleed from the one we read. I mean, Cherseoli has not said anything since the first scene. He got 6 lines. No. I tell a lie. 9 lines, or another little speech there as well. So yeah, he's had at least 15 lines. So I feel he's like my brother.
To be fair, though, that kind of makes him a major character because other than Bajazet and Selimus, no one else has really said anything up until this point. So, 15 lines is pretty good going.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Mustaffa appears in at least 3 stage directions, but presumably as a mute.
He has said 4 lines in the previous scene, scene 4. And has been about. We did have this raised the point that some of the stage directions of lots of people entering might have reached printers' wage inflation of how many people are actually in the scenes, and that's one for us to decide when staging. But yeah, Bajazet and Selimus's speeches facing off each other. I was wondering if you could restructure that into dialogue with them sort of passing the bat, doing bits of their speeches in little chunks rather than one after the other, but I don't think you can.
Good idea.
So the scene increases the pace.
Mm.
The pace was slowed down, I think, by the long monologues. But the shortness of the scenes actually picks up pace a bit, which is quite good.
Mm.
It's woken everybody up who'd fallen asleep in the first couple of scenes.
Yeah, we've got trumpets, we've got fights, and that's exciting. And we've had a result. That evil dude is not winning.
Well, the old bull has seen off the young bull.
Yes. Well, that's a good image. Okay, and now moving into scene 9. No, I won't continue that. As we've got it down as scene 9, again, there is a question of precisely whether you would have labelled the previous scenes as one scene or several scenes is a good question. But as we've got it labelled, this is scene 9. Enter Acomat, Vizier, Regan, and a band of soldiers.
Perhaps you wonder why Prince Acomat, delighting heretofore in foolish love, hath changed his quiet to a soldier's state, and turned the dulcet tunes of Hymen's song into Bellona's horrible outcries. You think it strange that, whereas I have lived almost a votary to wantonness, to see me lay off effeminate robes and arm my body in an iron wall. I have enjoyed quiet long enough, and surfeited with pleasure's circuitry, a field of dainties I have passed through, and been a champion to fair Cythery. Now, since this idle peace hath wearied me, I'll follow Mars and war another while, and dye my shield in dolorous vermeil. My brother Selim, through his manly deeds, hath lifted up his fame into the skies, while we, like earthworms lurking in the weeds, do live inglorious in all men's eyes. What lets me then from this vain slumber rise, and by strong hand achieve eternal glory that may be talked of in all memory? And see how fortune favours mine intent. Heard you not, lordings, how Prince Selimus against our royal father armoured went, and how the Janissaries made him flee to Ramir, emperor of Tartary? This his rebellion greatly profits me, for I shall sooner win my father's mind to yield me up the Turkish empire, which, if I have, I am sure I shall find strong enemies to pull me down again, that fain would have Prince Selimus to reign. Then civil discord and contentious war will follow Acomat's coronation. Selim no doubt will broach seditious jar, and Corkut too will seek for alteration. Now to prevent all sudden perturbation, we thought it good to muster up our powers, that danger may not take it unprovided.
I like your highness' resolution well, for these should be the chief arts of a king, to punish those that furiously rebel, and honour those that sacred counsel bring, to make good laws, ill customs to expel, to nourish peace from whence your riches spring, and when good quarrels call you to the field, to excel your men in handling spear and shield. Thus shall the glory of your matchless name be registered up in immortal lines. Whereas that prince that follows lustful game, and to fond toys his captive mind inclines, shall never pass the temple of true fame, whose worth is greater than the Indian mines. But is your grace assured certainly that Bajazet doth favour your request? Perhaps you may make him your enemy. You know how much your father doth detest stout disobedience and obstinacy. I speak not this as if I thought it best, your highness should your right in it neglect, but that you might be close and circumspect.
We thank thee, Vizier, for thy loving care. As for my father Bajazet's affection, unless his holy vows forgotten are, I shall be sure of it by his election. But after Acomat's erection, we must forecast what things be necessary, lest that our kingdom be too momentary.
First, let my lord be seated in his throne, installed by great Bajazet's consent. As yet your harvest is not fully grown, but in the green and unripe blade is pent. And when you once have got the regiment, then may your lords more easily provide against all accidents that may betide.
Then set we forth to Byzantium, that we may know what Bajazet intends. Advise thee, Acomat. What's best to do? The Janissaries favour Selimus, and they are strong, undaunted enemies, which will in arms against thy election. Is this my speech? This feels like it should be someone else's speech.
No.
Okay. Which will in arms against thy election rise. Then wile them to thy will with precious gifts and store of gold, timely largition, the steadfast persons from their person lifts. But then beware, lest Bajazet's affection change into hatred by such premonition, for then he think that I am factious, and imitate my brother Selimus. Besides, a prince's honour doth debase that begs the common soldier's suffrages, and if the basses knew I sought their grace, it would the more increase their insolences. To resist them were over-hardiness, and worse it were to leave my enterprise. Well, howsoe'er, resolve to venture it. Fortune doth favour every bold essay, and 'twere a trick of an unsettled wit, because the bees have stings with them alway, to fear our mouths in honey to embay. Then resolution for me leads the dance, and thus resolved, I mean to try my chance.
And thus ends this introductory scene to Acomat, who you know we've had mention of, but I don't think we've met him before. Sort of dipping his toe into the whole being a soldier thing. As that opening that opens all sorts of questions. It's interesting. The plan is basically, well, everything's falling apart a bit at the moment, so we better get ourselves into the action, or we're going to get frozen out. He's not an idiot by any stretch of the imagination. He's just not really been doing this war thing before. I like the Vizier's process of 2 parts flattery, 1 part suggestion. Most of that speech is softening up. You know, all this stuff. Are you sure we're good with Bajazet? I did feel your point there for a second with Acomat, that last speech.
I suddenly got confused. He's talking about himself in the third person, which I mean I know kings do, but like it just Yeah, it seemed like someone was giving him advice.
There
It feels
is a
like
moment. There is a moment in it. It feels like that. Simon.
No, I suspect I'm going to say what you're going to say. It feels like maybe there was a missing stage direction. Regan leaves, and then Acomat's last speech is a soliloquy to me, because it's kind of self-counsel, perhaps.
Yeah, it could be.
I was just surprised I got away with that thing that I said. I was cringing when I read my lines. I was like, ooh.
Still got your head.
There's an awful lot of good government information here. There's a tremendous amount. I mean, not only that, all the first, yesterday's big Bajazet speech and the Selimus speech are full of government theory.
Yeah.
Loads and loads of early modern government theory, and the Vizier too.
I could actually see the Vizier as Sir Humphrey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking more of Sir William Cecil, but yes.
Well, I mean, it's interesting if we think about, the other plays Queen's men are doing, this company, the Looking Glass for London and England, which is, I suppose, an exemplar of what not to do in terms of being in power and governance, and other possible political messages that are being placed in these texts. It might be deliberate. I don't want to go too far on that road because I haven't done the research, but I believe that is a line of thought for the Queen's men.
But did they have a patron apart from the Queen?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know the team is assembled to be the best from the best players, to be one of the largest companies, but that's back in 1583. By 1592, I'm not sure what the precise state of the company is. It's not going to do desperately well over the next few years because the plague's going to set in. And it's general fortunes, and there's a big sort of general moving around of forces that goes on. So it's complicated over time as well as everything else. That's one to flag up for future thoughts and questions. Any additional thoughts about this scene or the play so far before we move forward? I don't know if Valentina is waving or just holding your hand near your chin. Okay, we'll move on to the next scene. It's quite a long one, so let's give this a bit of oomph and see what happens here. Enter Bajazet, Mustaffa, Calabasa, Halibasa, and the Janissaries.
What prince soe'er trusts to his mighty power, ruling the reigns of many nations, and feareth not lest fickle fortune lower, or thinks his kingdom free from alterations, if he were in the place of Bajazet, he would but little by his sceptre set. For what hath rule that makes it acceptable? Rather, what hath it not worthy of hate? First of all, is our state still mutable, and our continuance at the people's rate, so that it is a slender thread whereon depends the honour of a prince's throne. Then do we fear, more than the child newborn, our friends, our lords, our subjects, and our sons. Thus is our mind in sundry pieces torn, by care, by fear, suspicion, and distrust. In wine, in meat, we fear pernicious poison. At home, abroad, we fear seditious treason. Too true that tyrant Dionysius did picture out the image of a king, when Damocles was placed in his throne, and o'er his head a threatening sword did hang, fastened up only by a horse's hair. Our chiefest trust is secretly distrust, for whom have we, whom we may safely trust, if our own sons, neglecting the awful duty, rise up in arms against their loving fathers. Their heart is all of hardest marble wrought, that can lay wait to take away their breath, from whom they first sucked this vital air. My heart is heavy, and I needs must sleep. Bajazet, withdraw yourselves from me a while, that I may rest my overburdened soul. They stand aside while the curtains are drawn. Eunuchs, play me some music while I sleep.
And music is played.
Good Bajazet, who would not pity thee, whom thine own son so wildly persecutes. More mildly do the unreasonable beasts deal with their dams than Selimus with thee.
Mustaffa, we are princes of the land, and love our emperor as well as thou. Yet will we not, for pitying his estate, suffer our foes our wealth to ruinate. If Selim have played false with Bajazet, and overslept the duty of a son, why he was moved by just occasion? Did he not humbly send his messenger to crave access unto his majesty, and yet he could not get permission to kiss his hands and speak his mind to him? Perhaps he thought his aged father's love was clean estranged from him, and Acomat should reap the fruit that he had laboured for. 'Tis lawful for the father to take arms, aye, and by death chastise his rebel son. Why should it be unlawful for the son to levy arms against his injurious sire?
You reasoned, Hali, like a sophister, as if 'twere lawful for a subject prince to rise in arms against his sovereign, because he will not let him have his will. Much less it's lawful for a man's own son. If Bajazet had injured Selimus, or sought his death, or done him some abuse, then Selimus' cause had been more tolerable. Bajazet did never injure him, nor sought his death, nor once abused him, unless because he gives him not the crown, being the youngest of his highness' sons, gave he not him an empire for his part, the mighty empire of great Trebizond, so that if all things rightly be observed, Selim had more than ever he deserved. I speak not this because I hate the prince, but by the heavens I love young Selimus better than either of his brethren. But for I owe allegiance to my king, and love him much that favours me so much. Mustaffa, while old Bajazet doth live, will be as true to him as to himself.
Why, brave Mustaffa, Hali and myself were never false unto his majesty. Our father Hali died in the field against the Sufi in his highness wars, and we will never be degenerate. Nor do we take part with Prince Selimus because we would depose old Bajazet, but because we would not Acomat that leads his life still in lascivious pomp, nor Karkat, though he be a man of worth, should be commander of our empire. For he that never saw his foeman's face, but always slept upon a lady's lap, will scant endure to lead a soldier's life, and he that never handled but his pen will be unskilful at the warlike lance. Indeed, his wisdom well may guide the crown and keep that safe his predecessors got. But being given to peace as Karkat is, he never will enlarge the empire, so that the rule and power over us is only fit for valiant Selimus.
Princes, you know how mighty Bajazet hath honoured Mustaffa with his love. He gave his daughter, beauteous Solima, to be the sovereign mistress of my thoughts. He made me captain of the Janissaries, and too unnatural should Mustaffa be to rise against him in his dying age. Yet know, you warlike peers, Mustaffa is a loyal friend unto Prince Selimus, and ere his other brethren get the crown, for his sake, I myself will pull them down. I love them dearly, but the love which I do bear unto my country's good makes me a friend to noble Selimus. Only let Bajazet, while he doth live, enjoy in peace the Turkish diadem. When he is dead and laid in quiet grave, then none but Selimus our help shall have.
Sound within. A messenger enters, and Bajazet, who's been asleep all this while, having a lovely nap, he awakes.
How now, Mustaffa? What news have we here? Is Selim up in arms against me again? Or is the Sophie entered our confines? Hath the Egyptian snatched his crown again? Or have the uncontrolled Christians unsheathed their swords to make more war on us? Such news or none will come to Bajazet.
My gracious lord, here's an ambassador, come from your son, the Sultan Acomat.
From Acomat? Oh, let him enter in.
Enter Regan.
Ambassador, how fares our loving son?
Mighty commander of the warlike Turks, Acomat Sultan of Amasia, greeteth your grace by me, his messenger.
And he gives him a letter.
And congratulates your highness's good success, wishing good fortune may befall you still.
Mustaffa, read.
So Bajazet, who's obviously lost his glasses, gives the letter to Mustaffa and reads, speaks the rest to himself. No, hang on. Speaks the rest to himself. How does that work? Gives the letter to and speaks the rest to himself.
Well, he's imagining what will be in the letter.
Oh, I see. So this isn't
thinks
literally.
He knows what Acomat wants.
Ah, I see. Yes. Okay.
So he's telling the audience what he thinks will be in the letter.
What he thinks will be in the letter, rather than literally reading the letter, while the other chap reads the letter. Okay. So it is your dialogue. Continue, Bajazet.
Acomat craves thy promise, Bajazet, to give the empire up into his hands, and to make it sure to him in thy lifetime. And thou shalt have it, lovely Acomat, for I have been encumbered long enough and vexed with the cares of kingly rule. Now let the trouble of empery be buried in the bosom of thy son. Ah, Acomet, if thou have such a reign, so full of sorrows as thy father's was, thou wilt curse the time, the day and hour in which thou was established emperor.
A messenger from Corkut enters.
Yet more news?
Long live the mighty Emperor Bajazet. Corkut, the Sultan of Magnesia, hearing of Selim's worthy overthrow, and of the coming of young Acomat, doth certify your majesty by me, how joyful he is of your victory. And therewithal he humbly doth require, your grace would do him justice in his cause. His brethren both, unworthy such a father, do seek the empire while your grace doth live, and that by undirect sinister means, but Corkut's mind free from ambitious thoughts, and trusting to the goodness of his cause, joined unto your highness tender love, only desires your grace should not invest Selim nor Acomat in the diadem, which appertaineth to him by right, but keep it to yourself the while you live, and when it shall the great Creator please, who hath the spirits of all men in his hands, shall call your highness to your latest home, then will he also sue to have his right.
Like to a ship sailing without stars, whom waves do toss one way and winds another, both without ceasing. Even so my poor heart endures a combat betwixt love and right. The love I bear to my dear Acomat commands me give me suffrage unto him, but Corkut's title, being my eldest son, bids me recall my hand and give it him, Acomat. Acomat. He would have it in my life, but gentle Corkut, like a loving son, desires me live and die an emperor, and at my death bequeath my crown to him. Ah, Corkut, thou I see loves me indeed. Selimus sought to thrust me down by force, and Acomat seeks the kingdom in my life, and both of them are grieved thou livest so long. But Corkut numbereth not my days as they. Oh, how much dearer loves he me than they. Bassus, how counsel you your emperor?
My gracious lord, myself will speak for all I know are minded as I am. Your highness knows the Janissaries' love, how firm they mean to cleave to your behest, as well you might perceive in that sad fight, when Selim set upon you in your flight. Then we do all desire you on our knees, to keep the crown and sceptre to yourself. How grievous will it be unto your thoughts, if you should give the crown to Acomat, to see the brethren disinherited, to flesh their anger one upon another, and rend the bowels of this mighty reign. Suppose that Corkut will be well content, yet thinks your grace if Acomat were king, that Selim ere long would join league with him. Nay, he would break forth from forth his Trebizond, and waste the empire all with fire and sword. Ah, then too weak would be poor Acomat to stand against his brother's puissance, or to save himself from his enhanced hand, while Ishmael and the cruel Persians and the great Soldan of Egyptians would smile to see our force dismembered so. Aye, and perchance the neighbour Christians would take occasion to thrust out their heads. All this may be prevented by your grace, if you will yield to Corkut's just request, and keep the kingdom to you while you live. Meantime, we that your grace's subjects are, may make us strong to fortify the man whom at your death your grace shall choose as king.
Oh, how thou speakest ever like thyself, loyal Mustapha. Well were Bajazet, if all his sons did bear such love to him. Though loath I am longer to wear the crown, yet for I see it is my subjects' will. Once more will Bajazet be emperor, but we must send to pacify our son, or he will storm, as erst did Selimus. Come, let us go into our council, Lord, and there consider what is to be done.
And thus ends that episode of The West Wing. It's so political.
Yeah.
It's so heavily political. I mean, this scene is fascinating. We've got Bajazet sort of doing the opening bit, and then he goes and has a sleep, and that means that this debate between Mustapha, Hali, and Cali is almost, it's a whispered thing. It has a certain whispered urgency. What are we going to do? The kingdom's sort of, we've just won a battle, but we haven't won the war because everything's still falling apart. And then he wakes up and he goes, this son is going to say this. I know what he's like. I know my son. And then the messenger comes in and the other son wants to do something else. And Bajazet's thing, like to a ship sailing without stars. That whole little speechette there is really, really good. And then Mustapha playing all the different sides. He's just trying to see, he's just going to stick with whoever he thinks is going to win.
He's lying through his teeth, though.
All the way, yeah. All the way.
I mean, he says they will accept whoever Bajazet chooses, but he's already said it's Selimus or nobody for me.
In fact,
for the rest of the army.
Yeah. If anything, the advice he's giving is will weaken Bajazet to make that happen. I mean, it looks like a very reasonable answer on the surface, but because we've already heard that conversation earlier, you really feel for Bajazet. He's tired. He wants to just go to bed. He's won this great battle, and everything's still crap.
It could be setting up yet another contender to the throne, because of course there's a possibility maybe Mustapha is actually angling for himself. I don't know. Maybe it's more undermining, despite what he said about Selimus. But I wonder, perhaps while he's out of country, maybe he's angling for a kind of a what would you call it? An overthrow.
A coup.
Well, he is
a coup. Thank you.
I mean, it hasn't appeared so far in the text, but if you look at the little family tree, he is in fact a son-in-law.
Ah.
He did say at one point that he was married to,
Yes.
Yeah. That has come in the text, has it?
Yeah.
It's that thing. He's probably not there yet. I mean, at the moment, he will wrangle power in his favour. I don't think he's shooting for the moon yet, but he's definitely angling in that direction. And if the opportunity comes, Mustapha's going to do it.
But what these guys have got to do is work out who's going to win. I mean, it's a bit like the when Elizabeth I died, the town of Northampton proclaimed as king Lady Jane Grey's sister's boy. And that does not appear in the town records because, boy, did they cut it out. But we've got one letter from the Privy Council that shows that they did it and it was fixed. Because nobody knew. And they were desperate to be on the right side. But the message hadn't arrived.
And the shades of this scene of Gorbadoc again, I mentioned it the other day, that this is a political debate as well as, big battle fighty stuff. And the way the play seems to have flowed so far is we have an opening still point that moves into action, and then we've dropped back to this wrangling that's moving again towards action. So it's sort of a waveform this play is doing, which I'm finding really interesting. Moments of stillness, because of course they're plotting while there's a lute player or something. There's some lovely sleepy music playing in the background. It's a fascinating scene.
I'm also getting echoes of King Lear.
And his 3 daughters.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
I was thinking that.
I wonder if that seed's been sowed because we've got another Regan, but yeah, there's definite manoeuvring.
Well, they spelled it differently, of course, but
no way.
I think there's no similarity between Selimus and Cordelia.
Yeah, true.
None whatsoever.
But the other 2 more debatable?
Yeah.
And again, it's same company. So if they're playing with the same themes of good governance, who rules, succession, they're all within, I think, that company's scope. We need to move forward, however. We've got some more short scenes with a bit of action coming in now, so we'll run a few of these scenes together. So, enter Acomat, Regan, Vizier, and his soldiers. Acomat must read a letter, and then, rending it, say,
Thus will I rend the crown from off thy head, false-hearted and injurious Bajazet, to mock thy son that loveth thee so dear. What? For because their headstrong Janissaries would not consent to honour Acomat, and their base basses vowed to Selimus, thought me unworthy of the Turkish crown, should he be ruled and overruled by them under pretence of keeping it himself, to wipe me clean for ever being king? Doth he esteem so much the bassus words, and prize their favourite so high a rate, that for to gratify their stubborn minds, he casts away all care and all respects of duty, promise, and religious oaths? Now by the holy prophet Mahomet, chief president and patron of the Turks, I mean to challenge now my right by arms, and win by sword that glorious dignity which he injuriously detains from me. Haply he thinks because that Selimus, rebutted by his warlike Janissaries, was fain to fly in haste from whence he came, that Acomat, by his example moved, will fear to manage arms against his sire, or that my life forepast in pleasure's court promises weak resistance in the fight. But he shall know that I can use my sword, and like a lion seize upon my prey. If ever Selim moved him heretofore, Acomat means to move him 10 times more.
'Twere good your grace would to Amasia, and there increase your camp with fresh supply.
Vizier, I am impatient of delay, and since my father hath incensed me thus, I'll quench those kindled flames with his heart blood. Not like a son, but a most cruel foe will Acomat henceforth be unto him. March to Natolia, there we will begin, and make a preface to our massacres. My nephew, Mahomet, son to Alimshay, departed lately from Iconium, is lodged there, and he shall be the first whom I will sacrifice unto my wrath.
And exit the very cross Acomat. Scene 12, enter the young Prince Mahomet, the Belierbey of Natolia, and 1 or 2 soldiers. 1 or 2.
Lord Governor, what think you best to do? if we receive the Soldan Acomat, who knoweth not but his bloodthirsty sword, shall be emboweled in our countrymen. You know he is displeased with Bajazet, and will rebel as Selim did tofore, and would to God with Selim's overthrow. You know his angry heart hath vowed revenge on all the subjects of his father's land.
Young prince, my uncle seeks to have thy life, because by the right the Turkish crown is thine. Save thou thyself by flight or otherwise, and we will make resistance as we can, like an Armenian tiger that hath lost her loved whelps. So raveth Acomat, and we must be subject to his rage. But you may live to avenge your citizens. Then fly, good prince, before your uncle comes.
Nay, good my lord, never shall it be said that Mahomet, the son of Alemshay, fled from his citizens for fear of death, but I will stay and help to fight for you. And if you needs must die, I'll die with you. And I, among the rest, with forward hand, will help to kill the common enemy.
And they exit. We're not going to do a discussion, but I just want a show of hands. Who thinks Mahomet is going to live long? Okay, let's move on. Scene 13. Enter Acomat, Vizier, Regan, and the soldiers.
Now, fair Natolia, shall thy stately walls be overthrown and beaten to the ground. My heart within me for revenge still calls. Why, Bajazet, thought'st thou that Acomat would put up such a monstrous injury? Then had I brought my chivalry in vain, and to no purpose drawn my conquering blade, which now unsheathed shall not be sheathed again, till it a world of bleeding souls hath made. Poor Mahomet, thou thought'st thyself too sure in thy strong city of Iconium to plant thy forces in Natolia, weakened so much before by Selim's sword. Summon a parley to the citizens, that they may hear the dreadful words I speak, and die in thought before they come to blows.
A parley!
Parley!
Mahomet, Belierbey, and soldiers on the walls.
What craves our uncle Acomat of us?
That thou and all the city yield themselves, or by the holy rites of Mahomet, his wondrous tomb and sacred Alcoran, you all shall die, and not a common death, but even as monstrous as I can devise.
Uncle, if I may call you by that name, which cruelly hunt for your nephew's blood, you do us wrong thus to besiege our town, that ne'er deserved such hatred at your hands, being your friends and kinsmen, as we are.
In that thou wrong'st me, that thou art my kinsman.
Why, for I am thy nephew. Dost thou frown?
Ay, that thou art so near unto the crown.
Why, uncle, I resign my right to thee, and all my title were it ne'er so good.
Wilt thou? Then know assuredly from me, I'll seal the resignation with thy blood. Though Alemshay thy father loved me well, yet Mahomet thy son shall down to hell.
Why, uncle, doth my life put you in fear?
It shall not, nephew, since I have you here.
When I am dead, more hinderers shalt thou find.
When one's cut off, the fewer are behind.
Yet think the gods do bear an equal eye.
Faith, if they were all squint-eyed, what care I?
Then Mahomet, no, we will rather die than yield us up into a tyrant's hand.
Beshrew me, but you be the wiser, Mahomet. For if I do but catch you, boy, alive, 'twere better for you to run through Phlegethons. Sirs, scale the walls, and pull the caitiffs down. I give to you the spoil of all the town.
And there's an alarum, and they scale the walls. But that's exciting. Enter Acomat, Vizier, and Regan with Mahomet.
Now, youngster, you that braved us on the walls and shook your plumed crest against our shield, what wouldst thou give, or what wouldst thou not give, that thou wert far enough from Acomat? How like the villain is to Bajazet! Well, nephew, for thy father loved me well, I will not deal extremely with his son. Then hear a brief compendium of thy death. Regan, Go cause a grove of steel-head spears be pitched thick under the castle wall, and on them let this youthful captain fall.
Thou shalt not fear me, Acomat, with death, nor will I beg my pardon at thy hands, but as thou givest me such a monstrous death, so do I freely leave to thee my curse.
Exit Regan with Mahomet.
Oh, that will serve to fill my father's purse.
Alarum, enter a soldier with Zonara, sister to Mahomet.
Oh, pardon me, dear uncle. Pardon me.
No, minion, you are too near akin to me.
If ever pity entered in thy breast, or ever thou wast touched with woman's love, sweet uncle, spare wretched Zonara's life, that once was noted for a quiet prince, soft-hearted, mild, and gentle as a lamb. Oh, do not prove a lion unto me.
Why wouldst thou live when Mahomet is dead?
Oh, who slew Mahomet? Uncle, did you?
He that's prepared to do as much for you.
Dost thou not pity Alamshay in me?
Yes, that he wants so long thy company.
Thou art not, false groom, son to Bajazet. He would relent to hear a woman weep. But thou wast born in desert Caucasus, and the Hyrcanian tigers gave thee suck, knowing thou wert a monster like themselves.
Let you her thus to rate us? Strangle her!
And they strangle her.
Now scour the streets and leave not one alive to carry these sad news to Bajazet, that all the citizens may dearly say, this day was fatal to Natolia.
Exit all for the massacre. So yeah, the death rate is increasing. We don't get to see Acomat going but it's
Mahomet.
Mahomet.
Yeah.
oh, Mahomet. Sorry, yes. So you're all right. You're all right. He didn't last long.
That strangling, I mean, that takes a long time. You can make that really horrible on stage if you want to. That's horrific.
Yeah, and and in fact, it's presumably a group. It's not one person doing it. Perhaps how are they doing it? There's so many options there in practical stage terms. It's quite horrific, and it's interesting. Our sort of image of Acomat's changing as he goes. I mean, it's interesting that scene before the action kicked off, where he's talking to the Vizier, and it's a Vizier just has these two lines, but they're really telling lines of it would be quite good if we just got some supplies. You thought about our lines of communication, sir? And there's part of me thinking that might come to bite them. He's doing the impression of being this bloodthirsty person, but that doesn't mean he's a good warrior in the way that other warriors who do terrible things do it for a purpose. It looks like he's kind of just doing it for fun. He's turning into quite a monster, but not a very impressive monster, if that makes sense.
He's doing it because he thinks that that's what he should be doing if he's going to prove himself a good Turkish type king.
Yeah.
Well, also, he has this reputation, doesn't he? Which we haven't actually seen, but we've heard that he has this reputation for being, very luxurious in his court and presumably being quite an extravagant chap. So now he's taken to making war. He's become extravagant in his cruelty. It's like the same fault, but just taken off into a different direction.
Yeah. Once it was swatches, now it's bodies. Tamara.
I'm just curious. The family tree that we have, is that the order of the sons?
Yes.
Okay.
So Alamshay was the oldest.
Yeah.
And these are Alamshay's children, but primogeniture doesn't seem to work in the Turkish court.
Mm-hmm.
We had that debate with when Bajazet was sleeping earlier about should we go with the eldest son just because he's or do we go with the there is a debate to be had about who follows him. It's not straightforward. The eldest just goes, and it is more blurry. But the power vacuum is being, or the potential of a power vacuum is being abused quite notoriously here. Simon.
We alluded to it earlier, but did you say that would this have been written around the time of the succession of James of Scotland, or are we just coincidentally looking for links?
It's 10 years earlier, but the idea of succession is increasingly hotting up. I mean, with every year that passes, someone's got to succeed Elizabeth. Whether it's James is, there's lots of possibilities. But someone has to, and it's clearly there isn't going to be a child by this stage. So yeah, perennial Elizabethan question.
Well, perennial Tudor question.
Yeah.
Given the history of 40 years earlier.
Well, at least Henry did have options.
Not many good ones.
Yeah. It's in that sense, we've only really had, prior to this, we had one person dying in a sword fight in a sort of fair hand-to-hand combat, relatively even fashion. And now we just have cruelty for cruelty's sake, which was signposted quite a long way, to be fair. Okay. Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, just the last thing. I wonder if maybe then we're making a statement on the kind of stability of the old. If we read Bajazet as being Elizabeth, perhaps better the devil, perhaps. I don't know if there was any whisper of her looking to pass on power before she died. I'd be very surprised, obviously, with the traditions of the time. But I don't know if, again, I'm just reading in stuff that's not there. But is it possible?
Her feeling was that if she named her heir, she signed her death warrant. That was the way she saw it.
Right.
Because she knew what a thorn she had been in the side of her sister by her very existence. So she would not designate an heir, because if she did, someone might think, well, yes, prefer him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's very real in Bajazet's mind. I mean, the interior life of Bajazet, and he's got a really good interior life of just it's weighing him down. There's no peace for Bajazet at all, and that's very actually Elizabeth towards the end of her life. I mean, she just sort of gets more and more of a paranoid wreck. Certainly, at the very last days when she literally doesn't sleep. Which is ahead. So yeah, the parallels are really interesting there. Okay, we have a handful of scenes left to go. A small handful, maybe slightly less than a handful. As we go into the closing of this session. So scene 14, we return to Bajazet. Enter Bajazet, Mustaffa, and the Janissaries.
Mustaffa, if my mind deceive me not, some strange misfortune is not far from me. I was not wont to tremble in this sort. Methinks I feel a cold run through my bones, as if it hastened to surprise my heart. Methinks some voice still whispereth in my ears, and bids me to take heed of Acomat.
'Tis but your highness overcharged mind, which feareth most the things it least desires.
Enter two soldiers with the Belierbey of Natolia in a chair, and the bodies of Mahomet and Zonara in two coffins.
Ah, sweet Mustapha, thou art much deceived. My mind presages me some future harm, and lo, what doleful exequy is here? Our chief commander of Natolia? What caitiff hand is it hath wounded thee? And who are these covered in tomb-black curse?
These are thy nephews, mighty Bajazet, the son and daughter of good Alemshe, whom cruel Acomat hath murdered thus. These I beheld when from an airy tower they hurled the body of young Mahomet, where as a band of armed soldiers received him falling on their spear's sharp point. His sister, poor Zonara, entreating life and not obtaining it, was strangled by his barbarous soldiers.
And Bajazet falls in a swoon and being recovered says,
Oh, you dispensers of our hapless breath, why do you glut your eyes and take delight to see pageants of men's miseries? Wherefore have you prolonged my wretched life, to see my son, my dearest Acomat, to lift his hands against his father's life? Ah, Selimus, now do I pardon thee, for thou didst set upon me manfully, and moved by an occasion, though unjust. But Acomat, injurious Acomat, is 10 times more unnatural to me. Hapless Zonara, hapless Mahomet, the poor remainder of my Alamshay. Which of you both shall Bajazet most wail? And both of you are worthy to be wailed. Happily dealt the froward fates with thee, good Alamshay, for thou didst die in field, and so preventest this sad spectacle, pitiful spectacle of sad dreariment, pitiful spectacle of dismal death. But I have lived to see thee, Alamshay, by Tartar pirates all in pieces torn, to see young Selim's disobedience, to see death of Alamshay's poor seed, and last of all, to see my Acomat prove a rebellious enemy to me.
Ah, cease your tears, unhappy emperor, and shed not all for your poor nephew's death. 6,000 of true-hearted citizens in fair Natolia Acomat hath slain. The channels run like riverets of blood, and I escaped with this poor company, bemangled and dismembered, as you see, to be the messenger of these sad news. And now mine eyes, fast swimming in pale death, bids me resign my breath unto the heavens. Death stands before, ready to strike, ready for to strike. Farewell, dear emperor, and revenge our loss, as ever thou doest hope for happiness.
and he dies in his chair.
Avenous jaws and loathsome Tartarus, from whence the damned ghosts do often creep back to the world to punish wicked men. Black Demogorgon, grandfather of night, send out thy furies from thy fiery hall, the pitiless Erinyes armed with whips, and all the damned monsters of black hell, to pour thy plagues on cursed Acomat. How shall I mourn, or which way shall I turn to pour my tears upon my dearest friends? Couldst thou endure, false-hearted Acomat, to kill thy nephew and thy sister thus, and wound to death so valiant a lord? And will you not, you all-beholding heavens, dart down on him your piercing lightning brand, enrolled in sulphur and consuming flames? Oh, do not, Jove, Acomat is my son, and may perhaps by counsel be reclaimed, and brought to filial obedience. Arga, thou art a man of prescient wit. Go thou and talk with my son Acomat, and see if he will in any way relent. Speak him fair, Arga, lest he kill thee too. We, my lords, will in and mourn a while over these princes' lamentable tombs.
And they all exit. Woe is me, woe. I mean, several things leapt out at me from the silly, the moment I hear Black Demogorgon, I immediately think of Stranger Things. It's... I apologise. Yeah, but Belierbey, mangled and dismembered. Has he lost a leg? Is that why they're bringing him on in a chair? I mean, dismembered does suggest that he's lost something. And a chair would be able to disguise a limb effectively. That's just the thought that leapt out at me there. It's quite grim. I'm getting the feeling with Bajazet of just put him out of his misery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He he's running out of options.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, Corcat might turn out to be a good egg. I mean, he
Well, we haven't seen him yet.
no, and he did say, didn't he, in his letter that he was like, yeah, you just live out your life, you carry on being emperor, and then I'll pick up the reins after you died naturally in your bed at the end of a long life. So, I mean, he could have been lying, but we can pin our hopes on him.
But it is
Cordella of the three.
Yeah.
It is interesting though that the whole thing feels a little bit like just make up your mind already, because then this is hopefully going to stop.
I don't. Yeah, I think at this stage it's not going to. There's no stopping this train. The scene directions did not say that Aga is on stage, but he must be on stage because he's literally given a job to do. So that's a note to pop in. He's presumably down as one of the Janissaries.
So I think there's just way too many ancillary characters that pop up and say stuff and then go away, and it started off very well yesterday. We all really liked it, and I'm feeling it's just a lot more disjointed perhaps than
there really aren't that many additional characters. So? There really aren't. I mean, just in terms of practical numbers, there really aren't that many characters in this play.
Where did Belierbey come from? I was. Who was that guy? Yeah,
I think
he was with Mahomet, so he was there to witness his death.
Yes.
Right.
He's the governor of Natolia, just been defeated by
I see.
Acomat.
Yeah.
I think it might be the fact that they have names rather than the governor of.
Yeah.
Which
would be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, in terms of total numbers, the primary characters is very small. The one element that I think is the elephant who currently isn't in the room is that after Selimus ran off stage, we haven't seen him for a while. He's only the title character, or title character. And we're not going to see him again today, by the way. I'm just pointing that. Just mild spoiler for the next few scenes. You've had Selimus. There's a reason why Simon is reading Aga, is because he can. He's got to be doing something else.
Shocking.
So it might be that doubling Belierbey might actually be a more logical double for an actual production. Is that a character who's only on for 2 scenes because Selimus isn't on.
Opportunity for a lovely beard.
But I think it's the political nature of this. This is really, that's how I'm thinking of it, is not thinking of it like a big expansive history. It's a very much a family circle and politics, and it's very internal. It's not actually that interested in the external world.
It's very Spanish soap opera.
I mean, you've not got that many speaking characters, but you've obviously got quite a number of extras when you look through the number of times we get a bunch of soldiers, a bunch of Janissaries wandering on, third spear carrier from the left.
Well, I mean, there's 2 points about that. I mean, yes, there could be. I mean, if it's Queensmen, then it's a company of probably only around 12. They might have some additional day-in hires, but that's the sort of company as it's originally constituted. So it may not actually have more. It may be that, again, that the printers just added lots of names into each scenes, and it's not as intended to be as populated as that. Obviously, if I were doing it, I'd cast thousands.
Cecil B. de Crichton.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts before we go into the next scene?
I feel like Acomat is making Selimus look not quite so bad at the moment, which I found interesting. Because I was prepared to go into this play and just have Selimus doing all these horrible things at once. And then Acomat is there and he's making it really easy for Selimus to kind of turn around and go, well, this guy's horrible. Let's get rid of him.
But Bajazet has said, I misjudged Selimus. Acomat's worse.
Yeah. like, it was quite funny though, because that big speech, that first big speech of Selimus's yesterday, he was like, oh, I don't care about religion. I'm just going to rain down all kinds of hell on people and, you know, revel in my reputation for being like cruel and merciless. And in actual fact, it's Acomat who's living out that promise. It's not the brother who was talking about it. It's the other one.
I think the problem with Acomat is that he's an amateur.
Yeah. I'm worried about his supply lines. I think it's gonna get him. It's gonna get him.
That's
he
the thing
doesn't
you're
know what
worried
he's
about.
doing. He knows that you're supposed to do some killing. He doesn't know it's for a reason.
It is a little bit like the political part of Game of Thrones for me.
God, we're back to that again.
Yeah.
They've got too many clothes on.
True.
Bajazet
You're a
just has
dragon.
too many heirs.
You can do something about that though, because a lot of the scenes that they had that had naked people didn't need naked people.
This is true.
Naked people.
It was just like, there's exposition. Let's put that in the brothel.
Yes, sex position was invented for Game of Thrones. It's a term that was. Anyway, I think we should go into the next scene. As we've labelled it, it's scene 15. Though we could call it scene 16 because at least one of the earlier scenes could be split into two. Which I've just noticed as I went along. Anyway, scene 15, as we have it, enter Acomat, Vizier, Regan, and their soldiers.
As Titius in the country of the dead with restless cries doth call upon high Jove, the while the vulture tireth on his heart, so Acomat, revenge still gnaw thy soul in shedding blood and murdering innocence. I think my wrath hath been too patient, since civil blood quencheth not out the flames which Bajazet hath kindled in my heart.
My gracious lord, here is a messenger sent from your father, the emperor.
And enter Aga and one with him.
Let him come in. Aga, what news with you?
Great prince, the father, mighty Bajazet, wonders your grace, whom he did love so much, and thought to leave possessor of the crown, would thus requite his love with mortal hate, to kill thy nephews with revenging sword, and massacre his subjects in such sort.
Aga, my father, traitorous Bajazet, detains the crown injuriously from me, which I will have if all the world say nay. I am not like the unmanured land, which answers not his honour's greedy mind. I sow not seeds upon the barren sand. 1,000 ways can Acomat soon find to gain my will, which, if I cannot gain, then purple blood my angry hands shall stain.
Acomat, yet learn by Selimus that hasty purposes have hated ends.
Tush, Aga. Selim was not wise enough to set upon the head at the first brunt. He should have done as I do mean to do. Fill all the confines with fire, sword, and blood. Burn up the fields, and overthrow whole towns. And when he had endamaged that way, then tear the old man piecemeal with my teeth, and colour my strong hands with his gore blood.
Oh, see, my lord, how fell ambition deceives your senses and bewitches you. Could you, unkind, perform so foul a deed as kill the man that first gave life to you? Do you not fear the people's adverse fame?
It is the greatest glory of a king when, though his subjects hate his wicked deeds, yet they are forced to bear them with all praise.
Whom fear constrains to praise their prince's deeds, that fear eternal hatred in them feeds.
He knows not how to sway the kingly mace that loves to be great in his people's grace. The surest ground for kings to build upon is to be feared and cursed of everyone. What though the world of nations me hate? Hate is peculiar to a prince's state.
Where there's no shame, no care of holy law, no faith, no justice, no integrity, that state is full of mutability.
Bare faith, pure virtue, poor integrity are ornaments fit for private man. Beseems a prince for to do all he can.
Yet no, it is a sacrilegious will to slay thy father, were he ne'er so ill.
'Tis lawful, greybeard, for to do to him what ought not to be done unto a father. Hath he not whipped me from the Turkish crown? Preferred he not the stubborn Janissaries, and heard the Bassa's stout petitions before he would give ear to my request? As sure as day, mine eyes shall ne'er taste sleep before my sword hath riven his perjured breast.
Ah, let me never live to see that day.
Yes, thou shalt live, but never see that day, wanting the tapers that should give thee light.
And out he pulls his eyes.
Thou shalt not see so great felicity when I shall rend out Bajazet's dim eyes, and by his death install myself a king.
This would be a lot better if I wasn't half smiling during it. Ah, cruel, tyrant, unmerciful, more bloody than the Anthropothaf guy. Robert, we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah.
That fill their hungry stomachs with man's flesh. Thou shouldst have slain me, barbarous Acomat, not leave me in so comfortless a life to live on earth and never see the sun.
Nay, let him die that liveth at his ease. Death would a wretched caitiff greatly please.
And think'st thou then to scape unpunished? No, Acomet, though both mine eyes be gone, yet are my hands left on to murder thee.
Oh, 'twas well remembered. Regan, cut them off.
They cut off his hands and give them to Acomat.
Now, in that sort, go tell thy emperor that if himself had but been in thy place, I would have used him crueller than thee. Here, take thy hands. I know thou lovest them well.
Opens his bosom and puts them in.
Oh, which hand is this? Right or left? Canst thou tell?
I know not which it is, but 'tis my hand. But oh, thou supreme architect of all, first mover of those tenfold crystal orbs, where all those moving and unmoving eyes behold thy goodness everlastingly. See, unto thee I lift these bloody arms, for hands I have not for to lift to thee, and in thy justice dart thy smouldering flame upon the head of cursed Acomat. Oh, cruel heavens and unjurious fates, even the last refuge of a wretched man is took from me. For how can Aga weep or rain a brinish shower of pearl tears, wanting the watery cisterns of his eyes? Come, lead me back again to Bajazet, the woefulest and saddest ambassador that ever was dispatched to any king.
Why so? This music pleases Acomat, and would I had my doting father here, I would rip up his breast and rend his heart. Into his bowels thrust my angry hands, as willingly and with as good a mind as I could be the Turkish emperor. And by the clear declining vault of heaven, whither the souls of dying men do flee, either I mean to die the death myself, or make that old false fator bleed his last. But death no sorrow could unto me bring, so Acomat might die the Turkish king.
So that escalated somewhat.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
Nice, cheerful, happy scene. Don't worry, we haven't seen the last of Aga. We were talking about putting Bajazet out of his misery.
Did he just cut off his hands and shove them in his chest?
Yep.
For the bosom of
Yes,
his jacket.
checking first to make sure he got the right one on the right side and the left one on the left side. That's the bit that... He's gone over to the dark side.
It's one way to make an ambassador armless.
Yeah. What gets me is that
Is it the left?
is Aga's doing all this stuff, and I've just written my note here. Stop using reason. I mean, we've seen this with so many characters before, with the vicious tyrant, and someone's going, well, let me explain why you shouldn't be doing these things, you naughty, naughty man. No. So, yeah.
Have you got your cushions, Sarah?
I can't believe you cast me in this character. Like, the one time I needed my cushion, I couldn't have it because I was actually having to say the lines.
Yes, so
That's like the most horrible thing I've seen since the Blood Eagle on Vikings. Like, oh my god!
are we ignoring the child being crossbowed?
Yeah, don't forget that. That's
well, longbowed. Well, I don't think it was actually.
At least that was
skinned.
But it was quick.
It's the fact that he doesn't even put out his eyes. He pulls out his eyes. It's like what?
It's very Kill Bill, yeah.
I actually had a little spoon, just but as the direction said pull. I actually left it to one side.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's cheerful piece. Any additional thoughts before we go into the final two scenes of this session?
He's so calm as he does it. Like, that's the other thing. He's one of those great classic evil villains because he's just so calm. As you know, he's not doing this in a frenzy. He's like, oh, that reminds me. Cut off his hands, will you? It's just.
We alluded to Star Wars earlier. It's reminding me of the fall of Anakin. Immediately starts killing Jedi younglings, you know.
I've blocked that.
Yeah, and he lost his hands and his legs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But it's also up until the point that he gets, you know, all his limbs cut off. It's not quite that graphic. Like, they cut away before he kills.
They did cut away before the temple. That's true.
They did strangle what's her face though on stage. Like, to be fair.
The conversation between Acomat and Aga makes it such a surprise when he takes his eyes out.
Yeah.
They were just
See that
talking.
coming, did he?
Things hadn't escalated that far.
I mean, Bajazet said this may be a tricky job.
Yeah,
no worries, mate. Yeah, I can handle it.
You know, it's something for a really experienced diplomat.
Well, to be fair, Bajazet did say explicit. Speak him fair, Aga, and Aga does not do that. He argues with him, so you know.
So it's his fault,
warned.
Right? So it's Aga's fault.
Yeah, it's all Aga's fault. The
thing is, though, like, Aga is probably, I mean, presumably he's heard report about what happened in Natolia, but I mean, he wasn't actually there. He's probably used to thinking of Acomat as this, you know, velvet wearing, champagne drinking, you know, kind of like just Playboy, yeah, exactly.
No, to be fair, he was in the same room as the body of the two dead and Belierbey.
Yeah, no, that's true.
He was actually there, even though the stage directions don't actually state it. He is actually in the room.
Okay, so scrap that.
Do you think the Acomat should have a white cat?
Yes, actually.
Definitely.
Dressed for the occasion. Okay, we've got two more scenes. They're not very long. We'll just rattle through them now and see, because I think it's important to find out what happens to Aga or Aga as we go on. So scene, as we've got it, 16, enter Bajazet, Mustaffa, Cali, Hali, and Aga, led by a soldier, who, kneeling before Bajazet and holding his legs, shall say.
He's not dead.
Is this the body of my sovereign? Are these the sacred pillars that support the image of true magnanimity? Bajazet, thy son, false Acomat, is full resolved to take thy life from thee. 'Tis true, 'tis true. Witness these handless arms, witness these empty lodges of mine eyes, witness the gods that from the highest heaven beheld the tyrant with remorseless heart, pulled out mine eyes and cut off my weak hands. Witness that sun whose golden coloured beams your eyes do see, but mine can ne'er behold. Witness the earth that sucked up my blood, streaming in rivers from my trunked arms. Witness the present that he sends to thee. Open my bosom, there you shall it see.
Mustaffa opens his bosom and takes out his hands.
Those are the hands which Aga once did use to toss the spear, and in a warlike gear to hurtle my sharp sword about my head. Those sends he to the woeful emperor, with purpose so cut thy hands from thee. Why is my sovereign silent all this while?
Aga, Bajazet fain would speak to thee, but sudden sorrow eateth up my words. Bajazet, Aga, fain would weep for thee, but cruel sorrow drieth up my tears. Bajazet, Aga, fain would die for thee, but grief hath weakened my poor aged hands. How can he speak, whose tongue sorrow hath tied? How can he mourn that cannot shed a tear? How shall he live that full of misery calleth for death, which will not let him die?
Let women weep, let children pour forth tears, and cowards spend the time in bootless moan. We'll load the earth with such a mighty host of Janissaries, stern-born sons of Mars, that Thebes shall fly and hide him in the clouds, for fear our javelins thrust him from his wane. Old Aga was a prince among your lords. His counsels always were true oracles. And shall he thus unmanly be misused, and he unpunished did deed? Shall Mahomet and poor Zonara's ghosts, and the good governor of Natalia, wander in Stygian meadows unrevenged? Good emperor, stir up thy manly heart, and send forth all thy warlike Janissaries to chastise that rebellious Acomat. Thou knowest we cannot fight without a guide, and he must be one of royal blood, sprung from the loins of mighty Ottoman. And who remains now but young Selimus? So please your grace to pardon his offence, and make him captain of the imperial host.
Aye, good Mustapha, send for Selimus, so I may be revenged. I cannot how. The worst that can befall me is but death, that would end my woeful misery. Selimus, he must work me this good turn. I cannot kill myself, he'll do it for me. Come, Aga, thou and I will weep the while, for thou for thy eyes and loss of both thy hands, I for the unkindness of Acomat.
And they exit straight into the next scene. And yes, I lied. Enter Selimus and a messenger with a letter from Bajazet. It's one hell of a postal service they've got here.
Will fortune favour me yet once again, and will she thrust the cards into my hands? Well, if I chance but once to get the deck to deal about and shuffle as I would, let Selim never see the daylight spring, unless I shuffle out myself a king. Friend, let me see thy letter once again, that I may read these reconciling lines.
He reads the letter.
Thou hast a pardon, Selim, granted thee. Mustapha and the forward Janissaries have sued to thy father Bajazet, that thou mayst be their captain general against the attempts of Sultan Acomat. Why, that's the thing that I requested most, that I might once the imperial army lead, and since it's offered me so willingly, beshrew me, but I'll take their courtesy. So, let me see, is there no policy to entrap poor Selimus in this device? It may be that my father fears me, yet lest I should once again rise up in arms, and like Antaeus quelled by Hercules, gather new forces by my overthrow, and therefore sends for me under pretence of this and that. But when he hath me there, he'll make me sure for putting him fear. Distrust is good when there's cause of distrust. Read it again, perchance thou doest mistake.
And he reads.
Oh, here's Mustapha's signet set there too. Then Selim cast all foolish fear aside, for he's a prince that favours thy estate and hateth treason worse than death itself. And hardly can I think he could be brought if there were treason to subscribe his name. Come, friend, the cause requires we should be gone. Now, once again, have at the Turkish throne.
And Selimus and the messenger exit, and we end what we're reading today. Poor Arga. However much I try to twist it so it doesn't sound like a cooking device, it does seem to need that stress of rather than the sharp edge. So we tried, but never mind. I love the way
home on the range.
Yeah, I love the way that Mustaffa just goes, well, who's left who we could go to? Let me think. Oh, yeah, the title character. I made my note that that's where the interval would go. Bajazet going, we'll send for Selimus, and then there'd be a spotlight on Selimus, and then there'd be a blackout, and then the interval would happen, and this little scene would then sort of ease everyone into the second half. That's how I'm seeing it. So, general thoughts. I should point out that we're not finished with Arga.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How is he still alive?
Still alive. And will return.
When the text says he puts the hand in his breast, I assume he means under his tunic. Or...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
I don't think so. I think he cuts him open and puts.
No.
But I have a question about that, because even if he's just got them tucked into his doublet, how does he get them out?
Well, Mustaffa does it.
Mustaffa takes them out.
Oh, right, okay.
The question is actually more importantly, how does he hold the legs of his of Bajazet?
How does he hold the
I wondered if that meant that Aga was was holding his own legs, like as in for comfort, kind of. I wondered if that's what it meant.
No, because the next line does say, "Are these the sacred pillars that support the image of?" He's talking about the king. He's recognizing the king by his legs.
Yeah, Tamara, that's what it looks like. That's what's happened to Arga.
Yeah, but as I say, still got more dialogue. Will return. Quite a lot of dialogue, actually.
I mean, they're obviously trying to milk the fact that they got away with whatever effects they've used for this.
Yeah.
And maybe he's going to come out with a couple of hooks.
Who knows? We will see how problematic its a depiction of injury is.
Is there a crocodile in the cast list?
No, we had one mentioned earlier.
TikTok.
Another of those not echinacea,
echidna.
Echidna, that's it, echidna. There was an echidna somewhere earlier on, I noticed.
Oh, was there? I missed him.
It went past very fast indeed. Or maybe it was yesterday's play. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be more plausible. I don't know. They do blur.
Yeah.
Though confusing the arraignment of Paris with this is very difficult to do. You have to work really hard.
Yeah.
This one had cannibals.
It is interesting how everybody's perked up now that the deaths have started. It's like going politics, not that fast. Interior character development, nah. Hands chopped off, great. But eye gouging, always good for the soul.
Yeah, but the problem with eye gouging and so on is that you've got to make sure that the audience doesn't start to giggle.
And that's a big problem for an open air shared light experience, because audiences will laugh at a drop of a hat. I mean, that's the rule of rule of thumb with lighting is that you want people to laugh. It's a general cover. If you want everyone to be sad, you just do darkness.
But also, eyes. I know so many people who have a massive problem as soon as anything is done to eyes. It's.
I'm one of them. Yeah.
I'm not that sure how many people would actually laugh.
You'd be amazed. The sadistic people you find out there.
Maybe more an uncomfortable laugh.
Yes. In part, it is an uncomfortable laugh. I mean, I remember Richard Eyre talking about some horrible mutilation that he'd had to direct, and he said the only way he got round it was by making one of the cast start giggling at the awfulness of it. That somehow took the energy away from the audience.
Yes, I mean, there are no laughs, and there is that question in my mind of is, especially with one or two of those opening scenes where I'm just wondering, is there something missing here that is absent from the text? In the same way as some other plays have had their comic business removed surgically after the fact, so that's a thought in my mind at the moment, because there are no jokes. We haven't had any jokes yet.
So far.
Yes, indeed. There may be some jokes.
I think there's a slight joke where is this the left hand? Is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's humour. There's humour, but there isn't someone. We haven't had a stand-up routine yet.
There are no fart jokes. You can't have an early modern play without a fart joke.
Yeah, no comedy horses. It's lacking, I think, from the lack of comedy horses.
Yeah, the absence of horses is deeply felt. We managed to get a horse last week. Conversion of St. John, we got St. Paul rather. We got a horse. Integral to the action, actually. The horse. You can't do it without a horse.
Right.
And the actor has to fall off the horse as well. I mean, it's full of health and safety nightmare gone mad. So, final thoughts, really. I'll go around the room as we're into extra time. Anyone want to jump in first before I start picking on you? Helen would like to dive in.
Yeah, it's with an apology. Somebody said this would be about the same distance back as the Second World War. From when it was, thinking in historical time. And I said, no, the First World War. But of course I was forgetting because the last 30 years have been a bit of a blur for me. And in fact, it is much more Second World War. And the thing that it is constantly reminding me of is the Death of Stalin film. It's that sort of drama documentary with horror. But that has more jokes.
That does have more jokes. Kneeling in we and everything. It's yes. So yes, that if this is to be treated as a history play, yes, that's about the distance that we're looking at in time. Yes. Okay. Francis, any final thoughts about the play overall, as well as what we've done today, or
well, I'm really enjoying reading it. And Bajazet just seems to be becoming more and more, he's losing the plot, basically. I think he's just kind of withdrawing into himself. And he keeps saying to his advisors, Mustaffa, tell me what to do. And, so yeah, he's kind of abdicating responsibility more and more.
Selimus, Simon, as the title character, you've done so much today.
I'm exhausted. Yeah.
Thinking about the balance, we've had this occasionally with plays where we don't know if this was the original title. I think we've got fairly good clues that it is, that it's known as Selimus, but he's the focus of action, but he's not necessarily doing a lot of the action, which is quite interesting. I think it's going to change in the last third.
Yeah, I'm assuming there'll be some sort of redemption for him, because redemption, even not redemption. Redemption for kind of, as Sarah was saying about him seeming like the kind of the possible tyrant, the protagonist. I'm wondering if it's Selimus by the end, where he learns a vital lesson about what it would be to be a ruler, and there's some sort of repairing his relationship with his father, which obviously that's just alluded to with the letter coming there, and Acomat proves to be the true villain. So perhaps it's the making of a good ruler.
Yeah, or maybe that's what comes into part 2. Who knows?
Yeah. There's something in that, I feel.
Elizabeth, any final thoughts from you?
It's become very bloody, hasn't it? Which I think picks up the pace as well. I do quite like the bloodiness, the goriness of it. I hope it gets more gory as we go on to the end.
We've had this room split before between those who've enjoyed the deaths and those who haven't. So I think we know which side you're on.
Yes.
Again, also just bearing in mind, thoughts about what we might do with this text if we're staging it today. I've definitely got in my mind starting to build a sense of what this production might look like or feel. You can bear that in mind or ignore that as a point. Valentina, any final thoughts?
More than anything, I am really enjoying the Acomat kind of like journey, and I kind of like I'm really curious to see if he's going to have more occasion of going even further before whatever else happens. So, yeah.
Sarah, you've enjoyed obviously Acomat immensely. It's just your kind of part.
I have enjoyed him though, actually, because I mean, there's nothing it's better to, for me at least, it's better to like play the villain than actually sit there going no.
You prefer to be complicit.
Yeah, when I'm reading the lines, it's distracting me from what's actually going on. I find the whole structure really interesting / bizarre, with Selimus just not being there. It's reminding me a lot of Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, because like he spends most of his time like injured in a tent, and like just appears at the end, and it's like oh there he is, and I'm it's just that's what it's reminding me of, because he's just not there. I mean, I know he was there briefly at the end, but all the real action, all the sort of escalation that's occurred in the play, he's just not been there for it. So I find that quite interesting. And I really, given that there has been this escalation of violence, I really hope that Acomat, gets his, because we've had plays in the past, I can't remember which one it was now, where whoever it was just went on the rampage, and then at the end was like, oh yeah, okay, he didn't.
You're thinking Cambyses here, the disappointing accidental death of Cambyses.
That's yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Yes, so I hope he doesn't just his dagger just doesn't pop out of its scabbard when he's getting off his horse and accidentally stab him. I really hope that he kind of gets what's coming to him. But who knows?
I know what happens, so I will refrain from spoilers. Tamara.
I'm still recovering from thinking that they were putting the hands in his chest cavity. Frankly, no.
Nightmares.
I'm usually I usually enjoy violence, but not this one.
I usually enjoy violence.
Oh, Tamara's terribly bloodthirsty.
T-shirt line.
I think I mean, from a more technical point of view, I think we've talked about the speeches and all of that. That how do you keep people interested? Because now we've got momentum going with the deaths. And horrible injuries and whatnot, but the speeches are really, really long in the beginning. But also, I'm kind of surprised that it's not more offensive, because it's about the Turkish court. I was expecting a lot more racism.
It's probably because it's enclosed, and therefore there are plays which are distinctly problematic Turk plays, but that tends to be because they encounter Christians as well, and then there is a bias that becomes much more apparent. There are a few implicit sections which sort of need some massaging and adjusting or addressing in production, but it doesn't seem to be doing the kind of things that some other plays do. I flagged it up at the beginning that was a possibility, but I didn't know, and we can agree or disagree on that at that point and see what else comes out. Alan, final thought?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly moving at a considerable pace at the moment. I missed most of yesterday's reading, unfortunately, due to computer problems. But you know, after the long, rather turgid speeches in that section, the section we've done today has moved on at a heck of a pace. The more I look at it, the more Bajazet reminds me of Lear. You know, the problem of an aging king and the succession.
Yeah, there's a lot of that chronicle history crossover styling there.
And now he's got Arga to be his best buddy. They can sit and be mournful together.
Which is a reference to the other.
People were doing so well, and I was going to pull this out earlier as a peremptory.
Very hard not to.
Just stop it right there. I'm going to close the session.
It was
now.
a reference to his friend. What was his friend called?
No, he was talking about something else. We're moving.
Okay.
I was trying to cover it up by pretending.
The guy under the hedge. I mean, bless him.
Okay, let's just closing there. God, we're doing so well. You know the rules. Don't make me come down there. So a final thought from me is I'm just going to go back to the first day, and I'm going to defend those big opening speeches. I'm going to definitely defend the first speech because I think it's fabulous. I think the one with Selimus's first speech is not a speech. It is a scene of action with other people in it that happens to be mostly said by Selimus. I think in staging that's a much more dynamic section. It isn't a fast opener, but I'm going to defend that. I've heard various people complaining about long speeches, but then they always complain when they don't get any lines.
I don't know that they do.
So on that final note, we have more than a third left to go of the play in the next section. This play we're doing over sort of two and a bit sections. So it's not the longest of plays that we've ever done, and with a few trims, it has lots and lots of potential. Join us again for the next thrilling instalment of Selimus, and goodbye.
Bye.
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 Bye.